Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Are you ready? Hey everybody, it's Jeff. So, nice to see everybody. And today it's kind of a gloomy day out here in Maine. It's cloudy, but no rain. But it's supposed to improve by tomorrow. We'll probably get some sun, and maybe things will get better as the week goes on. So, today I wanted to, this is kind of a late topic subject here to deal with, but it seemed like with everything else that was going on, it just kind of kept being pushed back. But I wanted to give, my reaction to the death of O.J. Simpson. And and one of the reasons why I felt like bringing this up is because I notice a lot of people, at least, news outlets and stuff, that kind of gloss over, the particulars of, what really made him famous or infamous. And it wasn't really, I mean, yeah, he was a good sports player and, all that. And, he made a lot of people a lot of money because, people would bet on him and his team and stuff like that. And so, in the sports community, that's pretty big. I mean, his name carried a lot of weight with folks. Even if people didn't like black people, they still liked having him on the, out there, as a sure thing to win. And he kind of, in a way, made his strides, to try to make people more appreciative, I guess, of black people. And it showed because he acted a little bit in movies, and I remember he used to do, what was it, during like a Sunday, when they have the Sunday sports, he'd be like a host, sometimes a co-host or something with, what's his name there? I can't remember his name now. Let's see. But he'd sit alongside them, I think, with NBC and stuff, and he would give, highlights and stuff. Howard Cosell, yeah. Him and Howard Cosell would be, on the TV together and doing stuff. So, his face became sort of a household name, and a lot of people admired him. I mean, he won a Heisman Trophy, and, and I'm sure he had a lot of other awards and stuff. So he really climbed the ladder of popularity in this country in a big way. Of course, a lot of his private life really was kind of, I don't know, building up to something bad. And, it didn't really seem to get people's attention much until, much later in his career. And, I think, pretty much what people will remember most about that is the way he abused Nicole Nicole Brown, you know, and because he was married to her, and of course there's a lot, you know, because people, you know, a lot of people hung around with him. He had a lot of friends, and these friends knew him better than anyone, you know, what he was like and stuff like that. And OJ had, you know, a propensity to be, you know, egomaniac and in a way, but very generous to his friends. It was said that, you know, I mean, he used to use cocaine a lot, and his driver, I think, was the one that had mentioned that if you were a friend of OJ's, he'd give you cocaine for free. You know, if you wanted some, he'd give it to you. And and back in those days, I mean, cocaine was a big thing. You know, today it's meth and shit like that, but back then it was that. And so, you know, he did that, and you know, he had friends, you know, like actors and stuff like that, and he was a womanizer. I mean, he used to, you know, he was cheating on Nicole with other women, but you know, Nicole, I mean, she wasn't stupid. She knew what he was doing, and you know, their marriage was suffering from that. You know, as it, you know, normally would, right? I mean, you catch somebody cheating, you know, it's gonna hurt your marriage. And but with OJ, I mean, he had one hell of a temper. Okay, he really did. He had a hell of a temper, and people said that about him. That boy, when he was mad, you knew it. And if you if he was high on cocaine, I mean, that only pushes him even further into being not just angry, but violently angry. And a lot of them think that those times that he was beating on his wife, he was high, you know, and you know, the police were constantly over there all the time, but OJ was was good at sweet talking his way out of things and mitigate, you know, belittling everything, and then the cops would just go away. He would do this repeatedly. They constantly called to go over there. 911 calls him, and they got them all recorded. You could find them on YouTube, for Christ's sake. I mean, they, you know, especially the worst ones. But you know, there was many times the police were called over there, and many times, and you know, nothing was done. And, you know, OJ would send them back to away, and that would be it. You know, because hey, the cops liked him. You know, the cops really liked OJ because hey, you know, that's police departments. What police department you know of that doesn't get involved in sports? OJ was their celebrity, you know, and even though they knew what he was like and everything, they just didn't want to do anything. Okay, that really is the truth. I mean, you know, forget about the Mark Furman crap and all that stuff. He had more allies in the LAPD than anybody that might hate him in there. Okay. All right, and that's even questionable whether or not Mark Furman actually hated this guy or not. He was part of that cabal of sports nuts too. Okay, so he probably would waive away the fact that he's black just because he was such a popular sports football player, you know, and he'd probably making money off of this guy, you know. So I doubt that there was any intention there to frame him because he was their big celebrity. Christ, some of the fucking people had photographs taken with him, with OJ in the police department. So don't give me that. All right. The thing of it is that Nicole and him separated. Okay. A divorce, and even though they were split, okay, OJ was still following her around, okay? He was stalking her. One of Nicole's boyfriends had said in an interview that they were having sex, and the next day, OJ shows up, kicks the goddamn door in, starts yelling and screaming and threatens the guy. He goes out, and the guy could hear what was being said inside the house. OJ had admitted to Nicole in the argument that he followed them around and had spied on them through the living room window while they were having sex. Okay? And so that's how he knew that OJ had been there. Okay? Now, that was just one incident, but you know, every time she was out with her girls and stuff like that, she or with her boyfriend, OJ would show up at the restaurant, the club, whatever. He was following her all the time. He was obsessed with her and he was stalking her. And, you know, it's because he always looked at her as his property. That just because they had kids together or married, that, you know, she can never have anybody but him. But, like I said, he was a cocaine user, right? Well, when a guy is getting jealous, okay, he's building himself up, getting angrier and angrier and angrier as this time goes on. Whether, you know, he's following her and he's, you know, and he's snorting that shit, okay. And they say that can cause, you know, what is it, psychosis or something? If you take enough of it, it's like the toxicity level of the cocaine, you know, gives a person hypervigilance, and it moves them into psychosis. I mean, he could have been like so spaced out at the time that when he finally decided he had enough. Well, let me put it like this. In 2007, was it, that he published that book, If I Did It? He gave an interview to somebody, and I can't remember who it was. And that interview was sealed. It looked like a television interview, I think is what it was supposed to be, but they never released it until 2018, which is now you can find it online now. In that interview, he said that he was in his Bronco, took a knife from Charlie, whoever the fuck Charlie is. I don't know who that is. That's the name he brought up in the thing. Took a knife from Charlie, and he said he blacked out. He don't remember anything he did after that. Okay, let's just say that's what happened that night. That he got so pissed off and he grabbed a knife and blacked out. Well, wouldn't that be indicative of being high on cocaine? You know, is it possible that he got so mad that he simply just lost all sense? I mean, it's the nature of the crime. When they saw the crime scene, suggests that the person who killed Nicole and Ron Goldman was very, very passionate, very aggressive, you know, wild even. Nicole's head was cut so deep that it went right to the spine. Her head was almost decapitated. Ron Goldman was stabbed several times, slashed, okay? Blood all over the goddamn place, okay? Footprints all around the area from, what was it, from OJ's shoes that he was wearing. What were they called? From his Bruno Magli shoes that he had, which he said he didn't own, but then they found later. Okay, so he got caught in a lie there. Okay, and there were footprints all around that. Plus they found blood on his socks in his home that he had. Okay, forget about the gloves. Okay, the glove thing, I mean, it's just, I mean, there was blood on the gloves too, but, you know, that there was, how they presented that evidence in court was a disgrace, because, you know, there's nobody in the world that could put gloves on over latex gloves. Okay, I mean, that's like trying to put two pieces of rubber on each other and slide it. It ain't gonna work unless you grease the fucking latex gloves up, okay? But there was blood everywhere and inside the Bronco, and, you know, and how the hell could all that shit get there? You know, certainly there had to been so much blood out there that it would have been more than anybody could have gathered in order to frame him for a murder, okay? I mean, they'd have had to sit there and physically suck a gallon of blood out of this guy in order to plant all the evidence that they found related to it, okay? So there's no way the police did that, all right? I'm sorry. Whatever anybody out there might think about that, you're wrong, okay? There's just, you know, if you sit down and think about it, one man could not have framed him up for this whole thing all by himself in the time that he had given to him at that time. Okay, just isn't possible. So you know, the crime scene was a mess. All right, and you know the funny thing is in all this, in the investigation, was that OJ's team as lawyers, okay, the dream team, none of them ever presented the possibility or even any proof to show that somebody else could have killed Nicole and Ron. No, none of them ever did. If they were so sure that OJ didn't do it, then why wouldn't their investigation lead in that direction and say, well, look, instead, they decided it was better to attack the police. And let me tell you why they thought that was the best tactic. Because the Rodney King incident that occurred just prior to this trial thing in this OJ mess had stirred up Los Angeles something fierce. I mean, people were so pissed at the LAPD for that, because you got some bad cops that beat the living hell out of black man on the interstate, and that was going on, and people wanted justice for that. Okay, they wanted justice for that, and so this case comes along. We're here. We got the LAPD going after a black man or something, trying to somebody famous, somebody everybody liked. Okay, they weren't going to let that slide. And there were people out there hoping that OJ got away with it. And the proof of that was that OJ, during the big famous chase, remember the Bronco and the 15,000 police cars behind him, everybody had their posters and everything supporting him, saying, run, OJ, run, run, go, all supporting him. That gives you an idea of just how pissed off they were at the police at that time. Nobody liked the police. All right. So it was very easy to suggest that, oh, somebody on the police force was trying to frame him. Okay, really. And that's what they were trying to sell. Sure, the jury would buy that. Anybody would buy that argument. Okay, certainly better than saying that OJ killed Nicole, even though there's a ton of fucking priors and a ton of proof to suggest that he would be the only person who would have the motive, the passion, the strength to be able to kill these two people in the fashion that they were killed. Okay, and they just wanted to, get back at the police. This is the worst time that this could have happened. I mean, sure, the police were wrong with that Rodney King thing, okay, but here's something where they were actually got the right guy, but because of something they did in that's going to affect that. You know what I'm saying? So even though the LAPD was broken at the time, a broken clock is still right twice a day. They happen to get the right thing this time, and because of the past mistake, they're going to pay for that, and so immediately the lawyers like Marcia Clark and all them were looked at as the villain right off the bat, okay, and they weren't going to look at her in any other way. Okay, she's working for the LAPD. She's a bad guy. Even though she had all the evidence she needed to, if this was any other man, if this was just a regular guy, not O.J. Simpson, but any other guy, that case would have been over and done with in a month. Okay, and he'd have been sitting in prison for the rest of his life. All right, but because it was O.J. Simpson, and because this was happening he was black, and this was happening in Los Angeles. Okay, and he was a celebrity. All of these things right here was bound to turn that trial into a circus, and that's exactly what happened. That's exactly, anybody could have predicted that was going to, even I knew that was going to happen. Okay, especially when Judge Ito allowed the cameras into the courtroom. That was a mistake. That only put more fuel to the fire that this case was going to explode. Everybody knew he was going to be acquitted then. Okay, there were people who were already predicting they'll never convict him. Okay, because it was becoming a show trial. And everybody who was there, the judge, the lawyers, even the jury, okay, they were there waiting to get their 15 minutes of fame out of all this. They were building their fame on that. And people like Nancy Grace and all these other commentators, where Court TV was making its beginnings and all that, all of this trial laid the foundation for all of that to just explode into what we have today. Okay, that was the perfect storm to create the maelstrom that became what we got now for court hearings and things like that. And how many cases after that became just as popular. But they that whole thing was twisted around thanks to OJ's lawyers. That instead of focusing on trying to acquit OJ, let's put the police department on trial and make OJ the victim. He's the victim, not Nicole, not Ron Goldman. OJ's the victim now. It was masterfully done. It couldn't have happened in any other court in America because, like I said, LAPD, bad rep, okay. It had to be there. They were never going to let that go anywhere else. But the problem, that in that trial for at least OJ's team was that they had too many alphas as lawyers. Everybody, even the lawyers, wanted to make their name, again, I mean, Johnny Cochran was already somewhat of a notoriety out there, and for him, this was even going to make his name bigger, And I feel like this was crazy, that everybody could see that, the handwriting here is because the press was covering this very closely. Like I said, this is what made a lot of people into media stars that they are now today. Was this case right here, and so it became, sadly on the bodies of two dead people, this became a big circus. I can't imagine how that must have felt to Ron Goldman's parents, who were there during the trial watching this and seeing how things were happening. I mean, it had to have been very surreal that, for me, I would have been so upset I wouldn't have been able to go into that court anymore because it had to have been obvious even to Ron's father that, this case was going to just fall to pieces because of the fucking lawyers and the drama that was going on with that, and the judge seemingly making bad mistakes, and, and I mean, there were so many ways they could have had a mistrial here, especially with the jury, that it just, like I said, it was inevitable that, OJ would get acquitted here at the end. And, all I could say is that it was a shock, I think, to a lot of Americans who weren't in the jury. Because remember, the jurors were locked away for like 8 months, and by the time this thing came to an end, these jurors were ready to kill each other, trying to get the hell out of that hotel they were in, because they some of these people had jobs to go back to, probably lost their jobs while they were there. I don't know. Their families missed them. I mean, they went through some holidays where they weren't with their families, and they weren't allowed to watch television, to read newspapers, or anything that wasn't cleared by the court. Okay, so they were basically isolated from outside world. And I mean, I don't know how any of you can even imagine that unless you try it yourself by going 8 months, by just lock yourself up in your house for 8 months, and no TV and no radio, no magazines, no internet. Okay, there was no internet then, but like I said, no internet, no way to do anything. Okay, how do you think you'd feel after that period, 8 months? I mean, you'd be fucking ready to kill, I think, and that's how these people were. They were getting on each other's nerves. The cops had to be in there to break fights up, and these people were, it was a mistrial just because of that. Because these people were trying to fight and kill each other, that should have been declared a mistrial right there, because now the jury can't be trusted to do the right thing. Plus, they were getting mad at the judge. They were showing up wearing all black. I mean, it was terrible. It was terrible. That whole trial was a farce. It really was.
This is me. This is me.
This is me.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Ruth McLaughlin, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you. Original.
A lot of really creepy statements, actions for sure, but statements that he's made in the past that make me very uncomfortable, certainly as a mother, but as a person who breathes air.
You're going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it?
Really creepy statements.
If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You know?
Stop it. Oh, it's so weird. Stop. You know what? You are sick.
Yeah. It makes me very uncomfortable that he would look at certain other Americans the way he apparently has in the past.
What does Tiffany have of Marla's?
She's got Marla's legs.
Creepy.
We don't know whether or not she's got this part yet, but time will tell.
What's the favorite thing you have in common with your father?
Either real estate or golf.
Donald, with your daughter?
Well, I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that.
He's definitely not a typical father.
Creepy.
Brutal, unprovoked war against Ukraine. Daily attacks on civilians, schools, hospitals, neighborhoods. Vladimir Putin wants to re-establish the old Soviet Union. The goal of this evil new alliance with Iran, China, and North Korea is to humiliate America, to drive us out, destroy NATO, weaken our military might. And it's working. It's working because Republicans are helping Putin right now. They've joined Russia, Iran, and China in fighting against Ukraine and America by blocking vital assistance, all so Russia can win. Ukraine has never asked for a single American to give their life to protect their country, just the ammunition to beat Putin. Ask your congressman why he's backing Russia against America and Ukraine. Vladimir Putin is America's enemy. And if you stand with America's enemy, what does that make you?
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Okay, so anyway, after the trial, the acquittal, and, you know, the shock and everything, OJ's basically out free, and then he has to face the civil case that the Goldmans had set up against him, which he lost, and he had to pay, I don't know how much money it was. It was a lot, millions, I guess, you know, and he didn't have it. I mean, he was broke after the criminal trial was done. I mean, he gave away all the money that he had to the lawyers. He didn't have anything really left, so things started to get sold around him, you know, things, you know, tapping into any money that he might have had to pay the Goldmans, the civil thing, you know, which, you know, was always funny because I'm thinking, you know, look, he was acquitted in the criminal trial. He goes to the civil trial, but he's found guilty on all charges. It's like, well, how can this be? How can you have two verdicts on the same problem, where one says he wasn't responsible, the other one says he was responsible? I mean, doesn't that in itself cancel each other out and suggest we need to retry this whole fucking thing all over again? Okay, you know, I mean, to me, it seems to me, you know, like, you know, the other trial should have been the same verdict as the one he was in, okay? Because that's the more important one, the criminal trial, right? So if he was found innocent there, he should have been found innocent in the civil one. But instead, the jury in that one seemed to have a better idea of the facts of the case than the previous jury did in that one, because, you know, they were basically in the middle of hell trying to, you know, deal with this. But after when the pieces fell and everything started to make sense, this jury knew better, you know, and found it easier to convict him on that for the you know, civil case. So I'm like saying, you know, that to me is a very puzzling form of justice in this country, where a person can easily be sued, okay, over a criminal matter, but yet in the criminal court won't be found guilty of. So I don't know, you figure that out. And again, like I said, the defense never offered, the defense never offered any other suspects to this thing. And did OJ go look for anybody? Because I remember he said, while I'm out, I'm going to try to find the real killer to Nicole and Ron. That's what he said. I remember him saying that. He was going to dedicate his time to finding those people or persons who did this. He never did. Okay? Instead, you know, all you heard about him was him losing his trophy. It was sold, and other things he lost. You know, he lost his home, and he didn't try to make any amends to the Goldmans in any other way. He didn't apologize. He didn't say anything remorseful to them. And lo and behold, while he's out chasing women again, he's also in the news for beating on them again. Okay, different women. Why the women would go after this guy, I don't know. I mean, that's a psychological problem there that I can't really grasp. I mean, why women get so attracted to bad guys? You know, it's such a childish thing, but it's obviously a real thing. You know, I don't know. Someone's gonna have to explain that to me. So yeah, he's out there and he's on drugs again, and he's beating up on women. Then he all of a sudden decides he's going to team up with some drug trafficker, Charles Ehrlich or something, and he gets together with them, with this guy, and they plot a scheme to go out to Las Vegas and rob this thing that was like auctioning off his stuff, an armed robbery. So they go out there and they do this. He gets caught, arrested, okay, tried, convicted, and he spends 9 years in prison for that. Okay, now some people were saying, well, this is retribution for him being found innocent of the murder, but now he's in prison for 9 years for a robbery, armed robbery, and all I can think of is that, well, if this guy he's trying to be, how can I say, if he's innocent of the things that they were saying he's innocent of, okay, he's not changing his life for the better. He's not trying to learn from his mistakes, okay, after the trial, right? I mean, wouldn't that be what somebody would expect him to do? Would be try to figure out what's wrong with him, you know, maybe stop doing drugs, you know, as a one step, and he never did any of that. Instead, he just kept being a criminal. And I think, like, you know, he hangs around with these bad elements, like this guy that he teamed up with to go rob. And he's still drugging, like I said. He's not doing anything different, but being what people remember him because of that trial now, because they saw all the bad side of him come out in the trial. And it really bothered a lot of people that he was that way, you know. But I think that's why to this day people still think that he's innocent, you know, even, you know, he's dead now, but they still say he's innocent. But, you know, because, hey, look, they can't picture this guy have done all that. But, you know, what they're not thinking of is this guy, OJ, was a big guy. He had huge friggin' hands, okay? Strong as an ox, okay? Who the hell else could take on two people like that, kill them both in the manner they were, okay, with that same passion? Who would have had the motive to do that same thing, okay? There weren't any other footprints from different people that were there, because, I mean, OJ apparently had got his shoes all over that blood that was there, and his shoes were the only shoes that were there, shoe prints that were there. Nobody else was there. So the idea that more than one person committed the crime, that's not true. Okay, no evidence suggested that OJ was accompanied by anybody to commit the crimes. He did that all by himself. Okay, and he would have been strong enough to do it. Okay, so. And with his history with Nicole, as violent as it was, you know, if there was anybody else that was gunning for her to kill her or something like that, that certainly would have come out, okay? You can't hide something like that. Somebody, one of her friends or somebody would have said, well, I knew this other guy that was constantly, you know, in her face all the time. You know, all the people that the police question, okay, nobody ever brought up anybody else's name. No other names were mentioned as possible suspects, people who would have wanted to kill her and this guy, okay, or even kill him and her, you know, as a, you know, nobody, these two people, you know, didn't really have any enemies except for Nicole, who had, you know, her ex was after him all the time, and he was the random element. He had to be the number one suspect from the get-go. It's like they say a lot of times on these police shows, when we investigate the murder of, you know, say like a spouse goes missing or something like that, we start with the husband or the wife and work our way down, okay? Because usually, a lot of times, it usually starts with the husband or the wife, okay, and that's where it goes, and I'll tell you, from all the famous cases that we've seen since OJ over the years, and all these different shows, you watch the investigations, and when a wife or a husband turns up missing, the other one will sit there and get on TV and cry their crocodile tears and say, "Oh, help me find them," and all. and all of a sudden it was them all along, you know, at the end of the day. So in this case, I don't see how this would have been any different. I think that in this case, with OJ and Nicole, OJ had to be the one that did it. Okay, it's statistically, that's the person who would have done that, and especially in the manner in which she was killed, with all that passion, a total stranger wouldn't have done that to her in that fucking fat. They probably would have just shot her in the head point blank, and that would have been it. They wouldn't have bothered with a knife and slashed her throat all the way to the spine, and then do the same thing to the other guy with multiple slashes and cuts and stabs. I mean, this was a guy that was out of his fucking mind. And OJ, well, being a coke addict that he was, who fucking knows? He was probably snorting that shit that very night and then showed up there in a rage, you know? Who knows? But it's certainly a much more plausible story than the mystery man, quote unquote, that was there, that, you know, a lot of people are trying to push around, saying, oh, there was another person involved, you know, somebody, a drug dealer or something that went bad, and, you know, that, I mean, you're talking about, that's like dreaming up fucking conspiracies about who shot Kennedy and, you know, and all this stuff. I mean, come on. Usually the simplest answer is the answer, not some conspiracy, especially not with Nicole. And, I mean, these people weren't stars. They were just associated with people who were, okay? But they were just average people. I mean, you would think of a conspiracy, you know, to kill somebody in politics, you know, a politician. But, you know, who the hell would want to make all that up, make all that fuss over, you know, a woman married to a former football player, you know? I mean, she was the victim to his beatings all the time. The police had a record on him a half a mile thick, okay? All the times they've gone over there, and all those times they could have arrested him, and they didn't. So if there was any conspiracy to set him up or to frame him for a murder, okay, they certainly could have done something about him even then, and they never did. It would have been easier to arrest him for battery, and they could have got him thrown in jail for that. But they never did, because, hey, they liked OJ, you know? Every police station all has their sports fans, and they liked OJ, so they weren't going to do anything to him. He was the juice, remember? So he was beloved. So he really had no enemies. There was, you know, they knew what his private life was like, but they weren't going to do anything to bring him down. Even, what's his name, Mark Furman, like I said before, he is in the police department. He's probably sports fanatic, okay? He probably watched and bet on games that OJ was playing, and what reason would he have, you know, to bring him down, okay? Despite the fact that, you know, he's got a racist background and all that, and he likes Nazism and shit, okay? That's a police matter, okay? That's internal affairs not doing their fucking job, okay? But this had nothing to do with OJ, okay? And I think, like, you know, people today, like I said, that are out there and they're trying to gloss over all of this just to, you know, say, well, he was a good sports player. Well, okay, fine. So if I'm a good sports player, then that means I can go kill somebody and you'll let me go free? Or if I kill somebody and become a good sports player, if it gets out that I killed somebody, people just say, oh, forget it? Is that the way we think now? Is that what it is, that, you know, if you're a celebrity, you can do anything? We certainly didn't let that go with Michael Jackson, right? People still have their issues with him, even though he's dead. Okay, how about Bill Cosby? You know, he's a celebrity that no one's gonna, you know. So why is it that we, you know, you got to be a sports player, you know? Why do you have to be a sports player to get away with murder? You know, I don't get it. Is it because there's money involved in it? Because you're not just a person, you're a commodity that people put money on? You sell shoes, you sell shirts, you sell football stuff. I mean, your name is marketable. Is that the reason? Is that because, you know, you're like oil? We're not gonna, you know, we're not gonna stop using oil because we can make money off of it. Okay? Is that what it is? Because sports is such a big thing, and a lot of money going through it, that we can't afford to lose players. I mean, that would probably explain why a lot of players who get caught on drugs or doing things, all of a sudden, they're only suspended and they come back. Okay, you know what I'm saying? They do seem to get a lot of credence there for their, bad behavior. But I would say that OJ is like the very apex of that philosophy, where because he was, he was retired, he was a famous football player, and for some reason that was enough to carry him through a murder trial and get him off. Okay, but people just want to gloss over that to this day. The thing of it is the sports world really doesn't want to recognize him anymore for anything. They would rather that take all his pictures down, do all this stuff. There are people out there that really don't want nothing more to do with him. I mean, after the criminal trial was over, a lot of friends that he had suddenly weren't available to him anymore. And he basically kind of lost, his footing in that community. People that some would say were his peers, but that only goes to show you that the people who knew him best, who were his friends, knew that he was quite capable of doing the crimes that he was convinced of, especially as Kardashian there. I mean, if you look, when the verdict was read in the first trial, the criminal trial, then he was acquitted. His friend Kardashian, standing there, looked completely stunned, as if he was expecting a guilty verdict, and that didn't happen. Probably because he knew something more than we were told, or that the public even knew. He knew that OJ probably had done it. Who knows? I mean, he was a lawyer himself, and he probably understood more about that case than because he had been a friend to OJ for so many years. I mean, Christ, I mean, the two of them neck and neck. I mean, so he understood. He probably had access to ways of understanding more about the criminal area of the case than others. He just by standing there listening to what was being said, so he knew more, I think. And it was hard, I think, from what I was told by, not what I was told personally, but by what I was told watching it on television and stuff like that, and in the news and stuff, that he had a hard time working that out, to try to believe that OJ could have done it. Okay, and it took a lot of convincing. So if he came to that realization that OJ had done it, then he was privy to facts the jury probably did not hear. He was privy to evidence that the jury did not see. And that was probably why he knew better than everyone else in that court that day that he was guilty. And when they came back with not guilty, he was like, I can't believe it. But it couldn't have been too big of a surprise, because he saw how the other lawyers were reacting. Okay, he knew how they were playing the game. And he must have knew that this thing was going in the wrong direction, and that he was, wondering, why haven't you brought forward any other suspects? You're spending all your time attacking the police, but you're not giving, the jury any reason to think somebody else could have done this. But I think, like I said, what it was, the Dream Team was pretty confident in the fact that they didn't have to do that, that the anger that was seething inside Los Angeles all by itself was enough to convict him, and using the race card was the way to do it. I think that's what they were banking on. So unfortunately, this back and forth about OJ's guilt or innocence is probably not going to end even in his death. He's going to remain controversial. He's going to be infamous. And people will just, will have their opinion about him till the day they die, and the thing of what got lost in this was justice for the families. That's the part that's sad, is, there's never going to be any real closure, for them. And I'm hoping, you know, that we learned something from that case about how to have a better way of a better procedure of dealing with capital crimes involving celebrities. Okay, I'm hoping that, you know, we won't make those same mistakes again, where people are trying to pile on top of this thing in order to make themselves a name and all that shit. Okay, because that really is toxic to the whole system of justice when you do shit like that, you know. So we can only wait and see. And I'm hoping, you know, that might, you know, like what's going to go on with Trump here, that this won't become even more of a friggin' farce than it already is right now. Yeah, I mean, people setting themselves on fire outside the courthouse is not a good sign. You know, that's all I can say about that. All right, so everybody have a good upcoming week there, and subscribe, comment, and I hope everyone takes care of each other well and, you know, stays healthy. And I'll talk to you guys another time, so take care.